now I'd like to talk about time structure and how these movements of light fit into some kind of durational structure that will make sense. So let's begin with the basic idea, which was a given from the very start. Jonah told me he would like to make a 60-minute piece. Okay. So I had those two parallel pairs. There was one I explained to you at the beginning, which was which was a 20-minute movement. And so what I've done is I've taken the two of them, the one that goes uphill and the one that goes downhill, put them together and dropped them into the middle of my 60 minutes. Then I've taken the other two and made them flank the big motion, so the big movement. So we have a 10-minute movement that travels uphill. We have a 20-minute movement that travels uphill, and then we start going downhill after that. So they're mirror images of each other. Now I just want to take, before I go on to the next part of the installation, I just want to talk a little bit about some assumptions that I used to have, still carry in some degree with my earlier work. This is like describing a cone seen from the outside as it's being projected. And one of the fundamental ideas in the piece is that it was attempting to find a way to make a film that only existed at the moment of projection. And also that shared the space of its audience. You think about, think about the landscape for fire film. In fact, when I showed it to my colleagues and so on, it took place, the piece that interested me, which was the performance, was now in the past, and it was in a field very far from where we were sitting. So I wanted to collapse that distance and make something that had no past and had no did not occur elsewhere, but occurred at this very place where it was being projected. And that became something of an article of faith for all the work I was making at the time. This is the same piece seen from the inside. As you can see, it's incorporating these spectators who are touching it and looking at it and moving around it as a sculptural form. So there was a kind of, I suppose, looking at it now, you say everything was a fact in a way. It was actual. And I had the same sort of ideas with my use of sound. I got very interested in sound. This was a piece, white noise installation in which I was moving literally bundles of white noise from one end of space to the other, as if they were sculptural masses rather than music. And it was also the idea that that was present, factual, and not referential in any way. Then more recently, this is a piece called Leaving with 2 Minutes Silence. I began working with sound again, after not having touched it for a long, long time. And the problem for me here is I wanted to create a silence in the center of the work. Of course, in order to create a silence, you first have to have a sound on each side of it, otherwise you don't have silence. And so I began to play with sounds for this work. If you look at the right-hand drawing on the side of the page, if you would, you'll see that I've indicated that the sound coming from one side is a city presence, like street noises, traffic, sirens, and so on. And from the other side came the sound of the harbour. It's pretty much what happens near my gallery or my studio, if you will. And the idea here with the sound was that it was it's an escape hatch in a way, about this idea of not being referential, of there being no elsewhere, which was to make sounds which, sound is very different from images. Sound, well-reproduced sound can be indistinguishable from the referent, from the real sound. So I was creating here sounds that were plausibly present in the gallery. And creating a doubt. People would come in and wonder if, in fact, they were surprised at how thin the walls of the gallery were, that you would hear the traffic even when you were inside. And that ambiguity certainly interested me a great deal. And it's one that's, to some degree, hovering a little bit here. So we have our structure now with the grid laid out, what happens visually with the lights. And I'm just going to show you what I've done. In order to open up, as I said, each movement begins and ends in the darkness. And so, let's go back a minute. And so there's just a moment where there's a moment of darkness between each of the four movements. I decide to open that up and create a 45-second dark void, which is also completely silent. And, well, actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself. What I then did, having opened up that gap, was to introduce the sound of a film projector. That's a whirring sound, and the projector signals the beginning of the movement. So as soon as the projector begins, the first light bulb lights, and when the projector is turned off, the last light bulb is extinguished. So it creates a way to underscore and to emphasize the essential structure of the four visual movements. It also creates now, in between, that 45 seconds is now not just a dark space, it's also silent. Now this is showing you how the projectors are being deployed in space. We have a four-sided space, and I'm placing the projectors, or the virtual projectors, if you like, each time on a different side of the room. So every member of the audience will experience the projector at some moment being behind them and at different coordinates within the space. Okay, now that 45-second silence, the three of them, dropping in there the sound of a subway express train hurtling through under the theatre. One of the things about theatres in New York, as I'm sure many of you know, is that whenever there's a quiet soliloquy or a very quiet musical passage, that will be the moment when you'll hear the police sirens or feel the thunder of the train running underneath the theatre. And our new theatre, determined to outwit this problem, built a sort of theatre in the theatre and a theatre on sprung floors and so on, and proudly announced that you could no longer hear any of those things. So it seemed too good an opportunity to miss, to cause an express train to thunder through and shake the place to its foundations during this performance. And so we have, again, the train, here it is passing beneath the stage at 10 minutes into the performance. And here it is returning 40 minutes later. And at the very centre of my structure, which is a sort of ring-shaped to symmetrical halves, is a helicopter, police helicopter, passing overhead. Exactly halfway through, 30 minutes into the performance. Now, again, these actions have an effect. They have their own reasons for being, but they also have the effect of underscoring and increasing the clarity of the structure. You see where the sound has the effect of the projectors have the effect of creating silence, and the sonic images, as I call them, that occur 3 times, the train and helicopter, also have the effect of separating our four movements, which of course in the end are going to be 4 dance movements. This is an armature for dancing, for choreography, and so to have great clarity in its structure is an advantage for the legibility of the dance. Now I'd like to come on to costumes. One of the things that I decided I liked the idea of was that the costume should look like they'd never been designed. That they should look, the people, what the dancers were wearing should look just like what people wear, you know, and in that way be quite low-key. However, one of the ideas running around the piece for me is the idea of sort of I'm still rather like the idea of, you know, exploded cinema, a cinema that's somehow vanished into crevices and looks everywhere. We no longer have big cinema. Big cinema meaning the movies. We have cinemas everywhere, on the sides of buildings, on small devices on our wrist, on the internet and so on. And for me, the idea of cinema being something that's exploded and found its way everywhere is quite a compelling one. And in a way I see that, for me, this is a piece about cinema. And one of the functions of the costumes was to reflect the light bulbs. The light bulbs, of course, become mad, promiscuous, demented, projected light lamps. And so the dance, one of the things that clothing has to do is to act as a screen for that light. Those were the four main dancers, and then Jonah, this is Jonah's costume. Now, I also wanted to increase that idea of reflection, of being a screen, and so we're going to wear, at certain points in the dance, reflective vests. There's sort of silver strips that even more vividly reflect the light. There's one close up. And that's Jonah's. Now, how to deploy these, because these two, like everything else, have to be placed within this temporal structure. So let's come back and see where they can go. What I decided was this. Jonah is going to only dance in the first movement and the last. And so, for all of his appearances, he'll wear a high reflective vest. For three of the movements, the dancers will not wear any of his additional vests, but on the third movement, all of them will wear it. And this actually turned out to work quite advantageously, because in fact it's Jonah's most violent and most active physically movements, and so the people are moving around rapidly and changing orientation, and so the vests have a chance of picking up the light as it goes. So, let's see, get my last notes here. So again, just to finish, I see this, the set and the lighting, of course, are the same thing. I see my whole structure, score, if you like, as represent, they're sort of coordinates of the city. Lights, the motion of bodies, trains and helicopters, with the cinematic references. Cinema in this context is, let's call it, the imaginary. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.